Players at what position for Nebraska have more at stake than any other in the upcoming bowl game? We'll tell you right now.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long.
All right, welcome. It is Thursday here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. We're going to basically take the portal season and kind of turn it into a bowl game topic a little bit. This is our first time kind of talking about the bowl game. So get ready. It's in less than 2 weeks.
We got some bowl game talking to do on the Mailbag Friday.
Okay.
And get your questions in early. If you want to have a question in the mailbag, you might want to do it right now. Get that question in, and you might even be too late at this point.
We're going to be...
That's a question. We'll see. You might make it on. But there will be some bowl talk in the Mailbag Friday. LockedOnNEB@gmail.com.
All right. So send those in, and we'll see if you're able to get in. We still have 2 more weeks to sort of prepare for this a little bit. But you mentioned it there in the cold open. Where might Nebraska feel good about what it has coming back for 2026? And where it might be under construction or under evaluation, and where are they definitely saying, all right, well, we're going to go into the portal? A lot of that is, some of that at least is going to get decided in that game that we haven't talked about in a couple weeks.
I think more of it will be decided by who from Nebraska chooses to enter the portal, but the bowl game is a factor as well. In one position, this is the position we're going to focus on here in this first segment, where it could be a major factor is at running back. So we heard on Tuesday from Isaiah Mosey and Mekhi Nelson, the top 2 in the pecking order, and you should throw Quentin Ives into that group as well, but he was not at the media session, and Nelson and Mosey in one order or the other tend to get mentioned first and second, and as the 2025 season played out, they were usually the first 2 off the bench to spell Emmett Johnson. So I think they're likely to receive most of the carries in the Las Vegas Bowl. They've been on the roster for less time than Ives and would seem to still have some kind of a breakout inside of them. And there's Connor Booth as well, who's a true freshman this year and I believe has not played at all. So he's definitely redshirting this year. If he has, he maybe got into a game or 2 on special teams.
He did.
But
I think
he get a carry against Akron, maybe Houston Christian. But anyway, he's redshirting, and this game doesn't count for red shirts. So there's also Mr. Kickoff Returns to Scholarships, Kenneth Williams, who is a running back and a kick returner, an all Big Ten kick returner. He's part of the mix at running back too. So all of that kind of goes into a pot, and you have to think and consider where you're at if you're Nebraska on January 1st. There's one day between the bowl game and the portal opening, and determine, did you learn something new? Ask the question, did you learn something new? I'm going to ask this question. Does Nebraska have its horse, its top running back on the roster right now, ready to go in the bowl game? It's top running back for next year.
No, I don't believe so. But I am excited to see Mosey and Nelson get some extended run in this. I definitely am. Like, I think, the way that they talk about him is certainly notable. And the way that Rhule talks about him is certainly notable. And so I think he literally said it on the radio this week, like, hey, we like what we have. We know what we have in the room. Yeah. So I'm excited, like in this situation against a good team, for them to have no other options than to go to those guys in this game. With that being said, I don't think any result of how they perform in this upcoming game is going to prevent Nebraska from going into the portal and trying to grab a top end running.
They'll go in the portal. They'll still go in the portal, but could it
No,
change?
I mean a starter. I'm talking
Oh
about.
yeah, you did say that.
Yeah.
What if Mosey goes 12 for 158?
That'd be surprising. That'd be surprising. I still think you need, a little bit of backbone there.
They're a little bit of thunder and lightning. Like, that's not a bad duo to start with. Nebraska could do worse than to have that duo to start with. And to start with, I mean to start the rebuild, the post Emmett Johnson running back picture. I don't mean to start games with. That's to be determined through the spring and in June and August. It might be that that's the case, but there's already a lot of big name running backs who have declared their intention to go into the portal, the likes of CJ Baxter from Texas, who's a former 5-star player. Fame Ijiboy from Minnesota, a name that, because of his proximity to Nebraska at Minnesota for the past year, definitely gets noticed. I think he's the kind of runner who, where was Emmett Johnson from? And Ijiboy, I don't believe, is from the state of Minnesota. Not that it would matter with Emmett Johnson being from the snow. He's from PA. He's from Pennsylvania, so has connections to Matt Rhule. Maybe not, but to the state that Matt Rhule is from, and some other coaches like Rob Aurich on the staff. EJ Barthel is a New Jersey guy, and I think would hit it off probably with Ijiboy if Nebraska can get him to come in on a visit. There's players like Marquise Davis from Missouri, Dylan Edwards from Kansas State. There's a whole list. I checked it out on Wednesday. So Nebraska's going to go after one of those guys for sure, maybe more than one of those guys, in hopes to get one. And you've got Mosey and Nelson, who Rhule was on the radio, as you said, Wednesday night, and he said that the players on the team think of Mosey and Nelson as a, quote, ticking time bomb.
Well, I'm Mike.
Big reaction there.
Mike Ehrmantraut said this in Breaking Bad. I don't intend on being around for the boom. Basically, I'm not sure how long we will have to wait for the boom on those guys. So
we're going to continue a longstanding tradition here at the Locked On Nebraska podcast of defaming the returning backs at Nebraska and just selling them entirely short, so that when they do go and have All-American and all Big Ten seasons in years to come, we will look like fools.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We just don't. I don't have much to go off of right now. Admittedly, you are seemingly a little bit more optimistic than I am about those two, and we could put that on the record. But I
think they have something there to work with.
Yeah. I think they need some experience and some guy and a guy with another guy that you maybe didn't mention was the UConn transfer. Cam Edwards, I believe is his name. So that's another guy that Nebraska, EJ Barthel, has a connection to, obviously. So, there's a lot of potential guys out there in the portal, and I would hope that Nebraska would put some resources in to try and get a top guy, like a tier 1 guy in that position.
Yeah. You can't necessarily rely on any kind of a repeat of what happened in 2025, where you really just had one player to lean on. And I understand that they felt good about Nelson and they felt good about Mosey at times this year, Ives when he was healthy, but really it was a one-man show. And you cannot expect to get through another season with anything that resembles that, even with a 2-man show of the backs who are coming back at the top of the depth chart. You have to do more in the portal to invest at the running back position than what Nebraska was willing to do a year ago. So Barthel at UConn in 2022, when Cam Edwards was a freshman and had 1 carry for 2 yards. But since then, he went for 600 yards in 23, 830 yards in 24, and then 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns this last season in 2025. So I presume that EJ Barthel would have been important in recruiting Cam Edwards to Storrs, Connecticut. And now in the portal, that's a relationship that he could rekindle. Do we know if if Edwards is playing in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl against Army coming up here on the 27th.
Let's see. Let's check it out. According to On3 UConn report a couple days ago, UConn football running back Cam.
They write about football.
He opts into the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. He opted in.
All right. Isn't that just like normal course of business? You opt in. This is like
being normal. Yes.
This is like the announcement. I saw somebody going crazy about this. It might have been Joel Klatt. He went crazy about a lot of things in recent days, but he went crazy about the announcement that Lenora Sellers, the South Carolina quarterback, was re-signing with the Gamecocks, and that there are other announcements about players.
Did the same thing.
Yeah, he's re-signing. And the suggestion was, why do they have to re-sign? Why is this an announcement? Isn't it? Was he going to leave? Isn't the expectation that if you're at a school, you're going to come back? And to that, I would say, no, it really isn't. Not today in college football. So yeah, it makes sense that Cam Edwards would opt into the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, and we can watch him. We can watch him in a week from Saturday, and maybe he'll hit a home run. Maybe he'll run into the Green Monster or something like that. And
good one.
Right. And then you can envision him in a Nebraska uniform if EJ can get back in with them.
I agree with Klatt. It's a little bit jarring, especially like when the USC announced it on Mayava. They had him sitting at a table with literally signing a contract. And I'm like, wait a minute. Well, I don't think I'm ready for this. I'm sorry, but it is the way of the world right now for sure.
I was describing it to somebody on Wednesday. Somebody asked me about covering the sport right now and if it's just kind of like the NFL with free agency. I said, no, it's not, because everyone is a free agent.
Correct.
In the NFL, you only have a fraction of the players who are at the end of their contracts in any given year. But in college football, every single player is a free agent every year. So it's total chaos, and we can expect more of it going into January, as Matt Rhule dove more into and discussed in his radio segment on Wednesday. We will get to that in the third segment. We'll talk a little bit more about Matt Rhule and what he had to say with Kyle Crooks on radio. But when we come back after this break, I want to talk about a movie that you referenced on your show Tuesday on 1620. That's coming up next.
But first, a word from our friends at Rocket Money. We welcome Rocket Money back. Ever feel like your money just disappears each month? It does happen fast, especially around this time of year. A few subscriptions, impulse buys, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden you take a look up and you're like, whoa, what happened? Rocket Money is going to help you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you could save more and stress less. Rocket Money is going to find subscriptions that you forgot that you were paying for, that you forgot you even have, and helps you clean them up quickly. I've heard cases where people have had 2 subscriptions to one thing before. Rocket Money is going to see that right away. Seeing all your spending on one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. And it's going to build a budget for you based on your past spending, based on the trends. It's going to help you keep on track without overthinking it. So let Rocket Money help you take control of your finances today and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. One more time, rocketmoney.com/locked-on.
All right, thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Again, Friday, mailbag show, so looking forward to that. It should be out early in the day on Friday, like before sunrise. So I listened on Tuesday, as I often do, to you and Josh Odson on the Connor Happer show on 1620 while I was making my way to media availability with Dana Holgerson and some of the Huskers. And I caught at the end of my drive an analogy that you were drawing between Nebraska football and the character Rocky Balboa in the 1983 film Rocky III. So this is a classic movie They all were in the Rocky series, with the exception of Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa. But why Rocky 3 in particular? What struck you about this Nebraska team and Rocky's character arc in that movie as somewhat similar?
Well, he's coming off of his win in Rocky 2 against Apollo Creed, right? He's on top of the world. Yep. And the beginning, like the first, 30 minutes of Rocky 3 is basically just Rocky feeling himself, right? He's rich, he's famous, he's got everything. He's got a statue that is being unveiled, and then at the statue unveiling, a guy named Clubber Lang comes along and talks a lot of smack to him and says some unfortunate things about his wife and all these other things. But it's a story about Rocky feeling themselves a little bit, feeling comfortable, and losing his edge. And I think I got to give credit to a listener. I can't remember who it was who said that, but I loved it and ran with it. And I do think Nebraska's lost a little bit of their edge.
Clubber Lang, not to be confused with Sergeant Bosco B.A. Baracus from the A-Team, but played by the same character, Mr. T. Okay, so what was the Nebraska version of knocking out Apollo Creed and being on top of the world?
Great question.
Is that recruiting Dylan Raiola? I mean,
I don't know.
That's what I thought. I was like, they got a 5-star quarterback. They are feeling themselves. They're unveiling a statue. There was a statue of Matt Rhule or Dylan Raiola that we're not aware of that was unveiled. And
you got the new football building built, and
right, for sure.
There it is. We're gonna take the cover off of this thing, and all of a sudden your world comes crashing down on you.
They definitely lost their edge. And,
if
you want it, and so I like that part of the analogy. So in this story, who is Clubber Lang in this story of Nebraska football following Rocky 3? Is Clubber Lang, like, who does Nebraska have to regain its edge to go then and get past? Are we talking about Iowa?
That would certainly help. I wonder if it's
they just got knocked out on Black Friday.
Maybe the real Clubber Lang is like the real analogy in the Rocky movie was him, some self-growth, right? The real Clubber Lang comes from within. Beating Clubber Lang comes from within.
Yeah.
Or the Rocky 3, not that deep. I'm not sure.
That's too philosophical. I think it's like Penn State or Iowa or USC or it could be any ranked team. Clubber Lang plays the role of a ranked team on the Nebraska schedule. All right, so we've played this enough. How can Nebraska regain that edge? What does it need to do? Because it's and this has been probably, other than the Dylan Raiola conversation and the coaching changes on staff, when you've actually been talking with players and coaches this month about the football team, that has been the biggest point of discussion, and definitely the one that I think that has opened the most eyes. This admission by Nebraska that it lost an edge. We saw it in the way the games went at the end of the season, but for them to say it and admit it is a little bit different. So how can they regain that?
Well, I not to go back to the dumb analogy that I just made, but like I really do think it comes from within. Like it's a focus and an effort and an execution. And once you get that, you get the execution, and then then all of a sudden we're talking about identity and football stuff again, and that is where they need to get to. And so maybe the loss of one of the topics, one of the conversations over the last couple of days since Dylan Raiola is out of the building now, is like, all right, well,
he's out of the area
now that Dylan Raiola is out of the area, he can, they can really decide what they want to be and recruit to it and then play to it with that edge and all those different things too, because it comes from confidence in what you're doing and belief in what you're doing. And I felt like Nebraska down the stretch of the season lost a little belief in themselves.
I think that's been the big key with Phil Snow stepping into this role as interim defensive coordinator. If there's one thing that Nebraska is going to get out of that, probably just as important as the way that it plays in the Las Vegas Bowl, and that could be a cherry on top. That can be like the second part of the equation, but it's just as important. The result of the game is what you'll see moving forward. It'll determine if it says 7 or 8 in the win column for Nebraska going into next season. But getting into the mindset in practice and just to enter the offseason, when Nebraska players take a break and then start of January and then come back and they get into conditioning and then all of the offseason stuff that they do, mat drills and such, they're going to have to try to pick up with from where they left off here in December bowl practices. And I think Phil Snow's biggest job, more important than talking about a scheme that can shut down Utah's run game, is just to kind of get these guys to feel good about themselves again, to regain that edge, to be Rocky when he was running on the beach and Apollo was training him. So Apollo is Phil Snow in this role. Like Nebraska's feeling down about themselves and isn't even sure if they want to go on. I mean, okay, I think they probably all want to go on, but
remember who you are, that type of thing. Right.
Yeah. And that's to me, like, no, all jokes aside, like that's what Matt Rhule has tasked Phil Snow to do here in this month, is just to like pump some life into them, because they didn't play like it on the defensive side, especially down the stretch of the season. That's there's not any good reason for it. The loss of your quarterback to injury doesn't explain that. There weren't like an abundance of injuries on the defensive side. You were playing good teams that were challenging your manhood, so to speak. So there wasn't any good reason for it, unless they just kind of like lost their will or their confidence or something. And whatever it was, like Phil Snow's got to be the guy, like part coach, part psychiatrist, part motivator, to just go down there and dig deep with them and get them to find that again.
It really is a great opportunity for them. They have they're 16.5-point dogs. They're without all these pieces and stuff like that. So like it's sort of against them in who you're going up against in this bowl game. And so maybe the game and the actual points result of it is secondary. But if Nebraska goes in there and they play well and they show, they have some sort of an identity and they play hard and they execute, not to make it like too much of a moral victory, or anything like that, because it feels like we're sort of setting the stage for that. But it's a really good opportunity against all sort of odds to go in there and play well when nobody sort of expects them to. That could be your jumping off point in the offseason, and that's what the bowl game is there for. It could set the tone for what's coming next.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a break. Come back. We'll discuss what Matt Rhule had to say. Is there another new coach in Lincoln that Matt Rhule hinted at on the radio Wednesday night? Let's discuss after this. All right, the holidays are here. If they're not here, they're going to be here before you know it. I think they're here. It's into the final stretch before Christmas, and that is exciting. But if getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot, maybe you need some help from Wayfair. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh. Maybe the guest room could use some new bedding. There is still time. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house and space outside of the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of delivery fees. Now, instead of stressing out about getting the house ready, you can actually enjoy the holidays with friends and family. Get organized, get refreshed, get back to the routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
All right, so Matt Rhule appeared on the Husker Sports Network on Wednesday evening in a backwards hat, and he's got a real position coach vibe to him right now.
That's what
and
it was.
You learn he is a position coach right now. He's just coaching the defensive tackles, defensive linemen.
Yeah, that's what Rhule's doing. He's still serving as the head coach. He's got big things to take care of. He made reference to the departure of Dylan Raiola. He made his choice, Rhule said, to paraphrase him. But for the most part this month, he's just coaching the D tackles because somebody else is coaching the D ends, and Nebraska runs a 4-3 now, although this is Phil Snow's defense, not Rob Aurich's defense, but whatever, 4-2-5. Okay. He said they have 4 new coaches in the fold, in the building, working with the team. We know about Rob Aurich. We know about Jeep Wade. They have been announced officially by Nebraska as coaches. We know about Lonnie Teasley because Tyler Kanak brought him up on Tuesday in media opportunity. Who is the 4th one? Am I missing somebody, or do we think that Rhule is referencing Roy Manning?
I think he's referencing Roy Manning, right?
Okay. That would be why Rhule's coaching the D tackles, because Roy Manning could then be coaching the defensive ends, the edge rushers.
Right. So those guys, the latter 2 there haven't been announced yet, but Kadak said yesterday that Teasley's in the fold, and we have no reason to believe that Manning's not. So that's what they're going with right now, and they're still without a true defensive line coach at the moment. By the way, I mean, anything on anybody there? I mean, Elijah Robinson, is it what's going on? I have no idea.
If you're in high school and let's say you ask a girl out to homecoming and she says, "Oh, thank you, but I'm not going to do it," and then later that school year you ask her to prom and she turns you down, and then the next year comes around and you really want to ask her out again, and you're getting the runaround for like a week.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you think that maybe it's not the best match? I don't know if that's what's going on here with Elijah Robinson. It might be a contractual thing. There could be some issues at Syracuse where he's got to get out of a deal, although Syracuse has already replaced him. Maybe I don't know what the holdup is, but I don't understand if they're going to hire him, why it hasn't happened.
Yeah, it feels like the trail has gone the trail has gone cold on that one, and this is just reading the tea leaves of the timeline of all this stuff. It doesn't feel like he's going to be the guy at this point, but
unless there's something going on that we don't know about, which is entirely possible. But the trail going cold is I think a good way to describe it. So Matt Rhule is the D tackles coach for the moment, at least. He will hire a defensive line coach or an interior defensive line coach, and maybe that coach will have some kind of a different title, associate head coach, or that's Phil Snow, but assistant defensive coordinator or co-defensive coordinator. I don't know, but assistant head coach, there's all kinds of stuff.
Defensive run game coordinator.
Maybe. Yeah, defensive. Yeah. They need a defensive run game coordinator after this season. That'll fix it, right? Just have a defensive run game coordinator, and the next thing you know, you'll be like top 20 in the country in run defense.
Exactly. That'll fix everything.
Yeah. All right, so we're still waiting with Rhule in the backwards hat. I think when Rhule puts the hat on forwards, that means that he's got a defensive line coach hired. But as long as he's wearing the backwards hat, then we're all still waiting. He will talk to the media, probably not in a hat, on Friday at the Hawks Center in the media room, and I would imagine he'll give more confirmation on the addition of Roy Manning to the staff, talk about Lonnie Teasley, what he's doing, what he's adding for Nebraska on the offensive side, and surely he will be asked about the defensive line coach, and we'll get some kind of clarity about where that's at and why it hasn't been filled yet. So Rhule said that as the D tackles coach, that he's been sitting in on defensive film sessions and meetings, and he just sits back like he's an assistant, and Phil Snow's leading the thing. And Rhule was raving about Rob Aurich because Aurich stood up at one point when Snow was breaking some stuff down and said, "Hey, I want to come up to the board." And he said to Phil, "I'm sorry, this is out of bounds. Like, you're in charge right now. I'm just here observing." And Phil said, "Nothing's out of bounds, man. There is nothing out of bounds here. You come up, you do what you want to do." And then Rhule then Rhule praised the dynamic that has already existed and what's happening between Phil Snow, the wise 60-something-year-old interim DC, and the 30-something-year-old Rob Aurich coming in from the Mountain West. And the head coach made it sound like it's genuine and real, the admiration that exists between the two of them. And I wonder if we ever really felt that way last year between Snow and Butler. I mean, they didn't like go at it. They got along okay, but I never remember Matt Rhule talking about really much at all about Phil Snow and what he added to the defense after we got through preseason camp.
Yeah, it feels like, it almost feels like, and I mean this in a good way. It almost feels like Rhule's first staff a little bit, like the staff he originally brought here with the intention of, all right, we're going to have some younger, energetic guys who, might be light on the experience piece that everybody craves and all that stuff. But man, they're going to bring a style and an energy to the table that is really important. Rhule also said on the radio on Wednesday, he had this quip about how, like, I can. We're 3 years through, and there was a whole bunch of stuff, and we're further along, and it was rocky, at first, and now I could really think about the football. I could really think about the football parts, which I thought was sort of notable in the way he's approaching things. With he's got a younger, less decorated maybe staff. Again at this point, so. I think there's something to that in the shape of this, and definitely one of the things that he went out and tried to hire was, and is still trying to, is I think youth and energy, and it feels like he's got that.
You're just looking for the right mix, and maybe what the right mix is for a Matt Rhule coach team in the Big Ten is to be heavy on experience on the offensive side and more exuberant and youthful and energetic on the defensive side. Defense is more the side of the ball that where you feed off the energy of your coaches and of the players around you. Offense generally more
exact and it's more of a science, right?
Yeah. And Donovan Raiola was energy. He was passion on the practice field. He was in your face. He didn't let you get away with, a misstep or what he perceived as a misstep. And that's beneficial. I think Nebraska has some of that with Teasley as the number 2 in command of the offensive line. But I think what Rhule likes about Jeep Wade and these guys have spent, I think, more time around each other than their resumes might indicate with what the way that Rhule talks about Jeep. And I'm interested to ask Rhule down the road about exactly what that is and where they've come across each other. But his quote about Jeep, he said, "I want our tape to look the way Georgia Tech's tape looked, the way their tape looked," speaking about Georgia Tech. And then he said, "We need a guy like Jeep with his magnetic personality to make people want to come and be a part of it." He's talking about recruiting. He's talking about recruits coming into Nebraska and watching a practice or seeing a game and seeing that coach with a magnetic personality. And Donovan, I think with the lineman, he had some of that, but it might need to go beyond that. And yeah, they're just kind of still tinkering and searching. And maybe the answer is to be really, really high energy, like Mike Eckler type energy on the defensive side, and offensively it's more personality, but Holgorsen certainly has personality, but you got to have the scheme and things like that buttoned up.
Yeah, I think with Donovan there was this sort of like, in the offensive line, it should be noted the offensive linemen all rave about him, right?
Yeah.
I think it was a little quiet and closed off, and he was like the leader in like a military style like situation, right? Not afraid to get after him because, hey, look, we're all going for the sort of common goal here. And then you bring in Jeep, but we don't know much about him yet, but from how Rhule talks about him, it just feels a little bit more, I don't know, friendly. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, he said magnetic personality, and
yeah.
So, and that's,
we'll see.
Last thing, Rhule and Troy Dannon both in the past couple of days have mentioned that Nebraska is going to have some players go into the portal in January, and that's obvious. We knew about that a long time ago, and then this month we've learned about Dylan Raiola and Jamarian Parker, Caden Vermas, the safety from Omaha. Clearly, there are going to be more, but I think the fact that both the AD and the head coach have brought it up preemptively leads me to believe that they know some names, and they're not only talking about backup players who weren't going to have opportunities at Nebraska. I think they're kind of on walking on eggshells a bit. Can't make announcements until the players want to do it, but there are going to be some key names, some people that Nebraska fans and Nebraska staff would probably not like to see go in the portal, but you get and you give with the portal, and you hope you come out with a net win. So we might be alarmed by some of the things we see.
Yeah, they'll lose some guys for sure. Like you said, some guys that you don't want to lose, and it'll feel like the sky is falling. And then they'll go out in January and they'll get players to replace them with, similar sort of, resumes and backgrounds and stuff like that. And we'll see where they sort of want to put in their money to, to really go after some top guys. It'll be curious to see what they do in those positions. But this is we got to get prepared for this. In December, it's, all right, everything is bad. You're coming off of this loss to Iowa, and it feels like everybody's going to go into the portal and everybody's leaving and everybody's going to get fired. And then January, you'll see some pictures of some guys doing mat drills in the weight room, and then they'll get a whole bunch. The candy canes come in January. I think for Nebraska, you'll feel okay about it afterwards, I think.
Okay. I'm seeing Matt Rhule on my other screen here with video on YouTube from his radio appearance tonight, and the backwards hat. It's an interesting look for the coach. It almost looks like he shaved his head underneath the hat. I know he hasn't, but going full in on the defensive tackles coach. Maybe he should shave his head for the bowl game. If Nebraska wins, how about that? Matt Rhule, defensive tackles coach, shaves his head.
You want to talk about incentive? There you go.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for checking us out today. Be sure to listen tomorrow. Watch us tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Nebraska on all our social platforms, on YouTube. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you get podcasts. And if Locked On made your Spotify Wrapped, prove it on social media to secure a month of our brand new Everydayer Club. That'll get you free, ad-free episodes. Just tag the Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform. They will drop you a code. Be one of the first to join. Get your favorite show ad-free. For those of you on video, we're going to send you off to the first ever Locked On National 24/7 Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football. Thank you for joining us today.